All right, Mary, what are we playing today?
Brahms Intermezzo in A major, Opus 118, number 2.
All right, let's just play it all the way through and then we'll talk after that.
Okay.
So what did you feel about it? About your performance?
Well, I hit some clockers for sure.
Still doing a little bit of work on the accuracy, sure.
And I say a lot of it is, there's so many, like, for me, there's a lot of little details in the piece, but then there's also the big picture and trying to balance the two.
Sure.
So that it comes across clearly and with the little details, but also the big details.
Absolutely, absolutely. What have you noticed anything specific about the phrasing in this piece? Like, is there a consistency as far as how many measures in a phrase? Have you taken notice of that at all?
Not enough.
Okay. So what do you know about Brahms as far as, like, his relationship to Beethoven? As far as that time period and what he had in common with Beethoven?
I don't know, I guess, what he had in common with Beethoven. I know that he's a class, like, he's from in the Romantic period, but he's very classical.
Right.
Or traditional.
Right. So one thing that strikes me about this piece is the way that it has even phrases. So there's actually 8 measures to every phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's consistent throughout. And so that's one thing I'd really like to work with you to start out here, is how can we make it sound like one big phrase? You know, here's 8, here's another 8. You know, putting some diversity in the phrases, but really starting somewhere and going somewhere within those 8 measures. Okay, so one thing to take note of is that there's a lot of slurs, and sometimes they're in places that you might not expect. So, for example, the pickups to measure 3, the phrase actually starts on the upbeat. And that's challenging because we a lot of times want to emphasize the downbeats. And so what do you think, what could help you make a phrase beginning on those upbeats? What could help you avoid the downbeat emphasis? Any ideas?
Or making this sound like a downbeat. Or making this sound too.
Well, just in the places, like, for example, going into the measure 3, making this upbeat sound as though it's the beginning of a phrase rather than before the phrase.
I think maybe I might be coming from a little bit above the key.
Okay.
Too high above, so it's a little uncontrolled.
Okay, absolutely.
And listening to the sound before the A before.
Okay, right. And then what do you also notice about the dynamics in a spot like that?
It should be quieter. It should be quieter than the following.
Right. Okay, so maybe some more dynamic variety. I was going to talk about that anyway in this piece. A little more dynamic variety will help you too, I think, with the phrasing. So which hand can help you a lot with your crescendos?
Well, the left hand can do that.
Right. Okay, so why don't we start again from the beginning, and I just want you to think a little bit more about the phrasing and see if you can begin those phrases a little bit quieter, and then see if that left hand can kind of empower that shape a little bit more.
Okay.
Let's try that. Good, one more time from the beginning. That's already on the right track. And then what happens, I thought the beginning of the phrase was great. What happens at the end? What is Brown's asking you to do there?
The crescendo.
Okay, right. So just a little bit more settling that phrase, tapering it down a little bit.
Okay.
And this stuck out to me a little bit this time. Where is the melody right here? That's such a big jump, that F sharp to A. But where is really the tune there? Right. So can you work on lining up that left hand more with the melody a little bit? Just see what that looks like. It's tough to make that jump. Yeah, just a little bit. that tapering is going so much better. Good for you. Okay, one more thing with that roll. So Brahms, we have a lot of rubato, right? Okay, that's part of the time period. Definitely a big characteristic of Brahms. When he puts in a roll symbol like that from the F sharp to the A, a lot of times with Brahms, that is a red flag saying, I want you to take some time here. Okay, and so I think that we could maybe in your rubato just work on making a little bit different choice there, as far as where you're taking the time. Because it can sound a little bit rushed otherwise, getting up to that A. So maybe just work on a little bit different time or pace of the rubato here, maybe a little bit different place, and then that'll allow you to take some time up to the A.
Okay.
Let's just try that and see.
Let's see.
Experiment with that a little bit. Yep, but still lining up the bass with the A. Lots to remember. Good, okay, and then on the second phrase, when he goes up to the A, notice what is missing.
The roll.
Right, so it's a little bit, so what might that invite you to do differently?
Maybe say go forward with that one.
Yeah.
And take time with the first one, let the second one move it a little bit.
Great, I love it. Let's do that phrase one more time. How did that feel?
It makes sense.
Good.
Because the two, I guess, are connected by that note, but they're different at the same time.
Absolutely.
Add a little bit of variety.
Great. That sounded awesome. I want to make you aware of one thing. Are you aware that once in a while your bass and your treble don't quite line up?
I've heard that.
Yeah, I've noticed.
That a lot.
Do you record yourself sometimes?
Not enough.
Yeah,
but,
none of us do.
Yeah. But
yeah. I mean, it's not very often, just once in a while. Just on certain downbeats, you'll sometimes roll something that shouldn't be, or they're a little bit. So just listen for that as you play. It was no specific place, but okay. So let's talk a little bit about dynamics. I think that phrasing, is it's true, and it'll help apply to a lot of the places in here. We may come back in a minute and hit a few more of those spots. But let's talk a little bit about two things: dynamics and about the expression marks that he marks in here. Something about Brahms is he's pretty specific with his expression marks that he wants. So first, dynamics. Okay, starting out, he marks
piano.
Okay, and then where does that change?
Piano dolce.
Okay.
Measure 4.
Okay, great. So dolce means?
Sweetly.
Okay.
Or sweet.
Okay, yep. And then he marks, where's the next change?
Pianissimo at measure 8.
Okay, good. And does that phrase where he marks pianissimo have anything in common with the first phrase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it just has a different harmonic underlay.
Right, yep. But the tune is very, very similar. Okay, so I didn't hear much of a contrast between that piano and the pianissimo. So we may, I feel like now you've got a good sound at the beginning. You've got a good piano sound at the beginning. So maybe let's work on the pianissimo here in just a second. But first of all, what is another marking that you see? So we've got dolce. Do you see any other words that he marks throughout?
Espressivo.
Okay.
Encolado.
Yep, okay. So what do you think might be the difference between dolce and espressivo as far as the character? What strikes you there?
Maybe dolce is a little more internal.
Okay.
Because it's sweetly. Espressivo probably gives a little more license to do what you want. It means
Great.
performer, express yourself. Maybe.
Great. Absolutely. Okay. So pianistically, how do you think we can make a difference between those two things?
Volume, dynamic.
Okay. Great. So I was looking at okay, so volume and exactly. Do you think you're going to have, you already said, more expression on the espressivo as far as expressing yourself, taking more liberties, right?
Probably more volume.
Okay. All right. So the first dolce that he marks is piano, and then espressivo it is forte. Sometimes he does mark, I'm trying to find if there's any, there is actually a spot over here in that B section in which he marks pianissimo with expression, espressivo. So let's take some of the quiet parts, because I think maybe would you agree that it's easier to be expressive when it's forte rather than piano? Okay, so let's maybe take this spot over here in the B section, and let's work a little bit with the espressivo. Let's see what that looks like for you, then we'll talk about that a little bit. Stop there for a second. Nice change with, I could see or hear a real difference between the espressivo and the dolce when you got there. That was really good. Did you purposely do something there to make that different, or how would you describe what you did there?
I tried to be a little more, used rubato?
Okay, a little bit less.
And then voicing.
Okay, great, voicing. Is there something with your foot that you think makes a difference in these two different characteristics?
Okay, maybe a little more clarity.
Okay, right. Okay, so let's work just this same section a little bit. I want to work with your pedaling a little bit. How would you describe the character of this section?
I think this one's the most kind of passionate one. Or the most passionate 3 lines in the whole. Okay. Piece, I guess.
All right. And what do you think about the harmonic rhythm? Do you think it changes a lot, or?
Not a lot, but there's a lot of other things on top of it that are changing.
Right. Okay.
A lot.
Okay. All right. So when we have a passage like this, you're exactly right. The harmonic rhythm doesn't change that much. But yes, the melody, you want it to be clear, obviously. But maybe we can find kind of a happy medium between, not over-pedaling, but giving a little more clarity to it. So could we experiment a little bit maybe with the level of your foot and just see, for example, in this, I think you re-pedaled somewhere in the middle, and I wonder if you could let that sound linger just a little bit.
Okay, so a little longer?
Yeah,
pedals?
yeah. To me, how did that seem to you? Did it feel muddy, or?
I thought it was going to be muddy, but it wasn't.
Okay, because it didn't sound muddy to me at all. Sounded great.
Good.
All right, awesome. So I was just looking at it. Now we're getting some of the general things down. Now I'm going to nitpick just a little bit because you're ready for that. So, for example, this spot right here, we could decrescendo that a little bit more. You're wanting to kind of arrive on the E, which makes sense. I mean, we're used to that whenever we, when the notes get higher. We want to go to that spot. But it's actually the opposite there. And so we're going to re-hit that in a minute. I'm going to have you do this section one more time. And the reason is I want to hear more of a difference, coming back to dynamics, between the piano and the forte.
Okay.
So right now you're kind of slowing down into the forte. Can we try, just for experimenting, because that's what we do, can we try it where we maybe lead into it a little bit more? I just want to see what that sounds like. What do you notice about this phrase here? Is it a subito forte?
No.
No.
So I guess maybe the question goes with the time, or maybe it's saying to push forward a little bit, or not to take time with rubato. Yeah,
I think so. And I also think that this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit more about rubato. So when you have a great sense for rubato, like it seems very natural for you. I can tell you have a very good handle on this music and this style. It comes very natural for you. What I'd like to see is a little bit more variety in the rubato. Okay, we talked about it a little bit with the phrasing, but I think we can talk a little bit further about it, especially maybe in the forte sections. You know, don't be afraid to just let it go a little bit more when you get into that forte. You know, for example, one of your tendencies, which works very well, is to kind of pause on the downbeats a little bit and then you let it flow a little bit. Maybe experiment with, you know, being a little bit more aggressive on the first part of the measure and then pulling back a different spot in the measure.
I see.
And especially when he really is, you know, working up to the big moment. Can we try this section just one more time? Thinking about that.
Let's see.
It's just a habit. You're still pausing right there.
Okay.
Can you just keep it da 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 dee da dee da 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 dee da?
Let's see.
Okay, this is all going very well. I like what you're doing at the end of this B section, going back into the A. You're calming it down. On the playthrough originally, you didn't calm it quite down to where I thought maybe it should settle before going back to that A material. I thought that was much better. And then you also enjoyed that fermata a little bit more too. It just set it up better. So good for you. Okay, so we talked a lot about pedaling with the espressivo marking. What can we do with our pedaling on the dolce, you think? To just give it a little bit different character.
Maybe a little cleaner pedal.
Okay.
Make it sweet seems to have a clarity.
Right. Yeah, earlier you talked about dolce being more of kind of an inner feeling. I really like that picture. And I think you're right with the cleaner pedaling, it just maybe a little simpler is better. And also helps us with that dynamic too. When we just, be a little bit cleaner with the pedal. So can we just take that A section? Before you do that, so when we get to these phrases, that's another example of where the phrase begins on the upbeat. And because it's easy to want to go ba da da and treat it like a 2-note slur on the downbeat, but it is really da. Yeah? So maybe the left hand can help you there just a little bit. Yeah, and it's the same concept as that other bar that we worked on back there at measure 3, where we've got this sign. Where we want to start a little softer, use that left hand to let that grow in the middle, and then taper it back down. Okay, so think about that when you get to there. Let's take it from here again. I'm going to stand back here and just listen a little bit. Okay, nice. I'd like to hear these one more time. I could hear a little bit of difference, but it sounded like you were being a little tentative right there. I think you were just really paying attention to your left hand, but then as a result, the right hand could have been a little more expressive. So let's just try it from, how about pick up to the page there? Should be exactly the same.
No.
Okay, we've got sequences there, right? But the harmony
is very different.
Can we make that different somehow? Maybe just take those two little sequences there. At this very last section, we've got pianissimo going back into the A section. Okay, and then really nothing else is marked dynamically besides the hairpins. Where does it change? Where is the main place that you're going to change?
Here.
Okay, there's a crescendo, but he doesn't really tell us where it's going for sure, does he? Until right here, and so. And so the volume never gets back to forte, right? In that whole last A section. And so even though the music is the same as what we heard before, it really is quite different dynamically. I mean, you can tell that it's winding down at the end of the piece rather than, at the beginning where we know it's going somewhere with the B section, okay? All right, I think you're on a great track with these. I feel like we made a lot of progress with the phrasing and the dynamics. Do you have any questions?
So I guess just to make sure I cover everything.
Yeah.
So, phrasing,
Mm-hmm.
bumping or not bumping, things that shouldn't be bumped.
Yeah, we're always working with accuracy.
Pedal, thicker versus thinner.
Right, yep.
And
Looking at
then-
espressivo versus dolce.
Okay. And rubato.
Yep, keep
Tendencies,
working with your variety of rubato.
Okay.
Excellent, Mary.
Cool.
Keep up the good work. It's
Thank
going awesome.
you very much. Thank
Absolutely.
you.